Shall be delivered. All that calls upon the name. What name is that? Shalom. Shalom. Yeah, we still have a little technical things we have to deal with. I had to play that through the microphone because it no longer plays right through YouTube anymore like it was when I first started using this broadcaster. Yeah, and I saw your comment there, Johan. I did have to splice the two videos together and it was a flow thing too. As I was getting in the flow of that and the spirit was moving, what happens? You know, whoever, whatever, demons, gremlins, NSA, whatever, trigger something in my computer to where, like, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds of footage is gone. It's just completely gone. So, and so the video ended, so I had to upload it from there and then try to find my place and get right back in it, which is completely disruptive, just like what the enemy does. That's what he does. He disrupts, and he was upset with me, obviously, for, well, one thing, what we're about to turn upside down on this channel here, some astounding finds in the code that I have to present to you guys. I did promise some of you that were on Facebook that I was going to get the FEMA camp one out, but I could not. I didn't have enough hours in the day, which is too much to do. Phone calls, and then I had to go into town and get supplies and things. However, I will focus on it tonight when we get done with the broadcast. But I did get a video out, thankfully. And what kind of timing is this? This video I see where somebody's teaching that the Jews are scattered. That the Jews are scattered. It's not Israel. Israel is the one who is in diaspora, folks. Let's not beat around that. Let's be clear. Israel, not the state of Israel. Okay, this was proclaimed a state of Israel. That doesn't mean all of Israel is there. We've got Jews there. There's basically two and a half tribes that were not part of the diaspora. They were part of the exiles who went to Babylon for 70 years. They did come back, and were in the time of Yeshua's time back in the land, and did remain so, even in the region. I showed you a picture of Yitzhak Kaduri today, who, a lot of revelation come out of that. Sometime we'll have to revisit that, but he survived and could trace back his lineage back to the time of Daniel, folks. I mean, that far back, that's a long time to live in one spot. And yet he did. But this proves that Jews did live in the land and continue to do so, even to this day. As you know, there was others that lived there as well, Ishmaelites and other ites that remained there. Yes, they're there. Then there were those Jews who decided to leave to go seek a better life, maybe even what is called intermingle, or what is the word they use, honey? It's slipping me right now. What the Jews use for intermarriage.
Oh, I'm not sure what they call it.
I can't think of the word right now. It will come to me, but that's what it began to do. That's what one of my sides of the family, Levine, did, and walked away from Judaism. Some chose to do that because of the persecutions, and they were tired of it. Some became very successful, like the Sassoon family. And those of you know the Vidal Sassoon, the Sassoons from Bangkok. Big Chacham, and these were Jews. The Benishai, Sephardic Jew, Bombay Jew. Never lost, knew who he was, knew where he was. It was the northern tribe. So we're going to tackle that tonight, folks. And I hope you really get this, because this is huge revelation. Now, many people will say, well, that's replacement theology. When you start talking about people who are in the body or in the church, are part of the Hebrews, and we're not talking about just in America, or this is worldwide. They were scattered in different places. There are different tribes in different areas, and we're going to see that tonight. Now, you will hear in different places on YouTube, internet, that there are exclusively all black Hebrew tribes that are exclusively from Africa. This is a myth. This is not true. The Hebrew tribes were Semitic tribes from the son Shem, from Noah. Noah had 3 sons, right? Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Shem is where the Semitics is where they come from. They live in Mesopotamia. This is where Abraham come from. These These people who lived in Samaria, in that region, in, the tablets, that clay tablets that come out in the Sumerian. Is that right? Did I say that right? Sumerian clay tablets, right? That supposedly, according to one of the Nibiru authors, predated the Bible. And he had it backwards. It was actually the Bible predated it. It was just recorded by a descendant of Noah's son before Moses got to the mount, which is, extremely, logical and plausible. That would happen. Are you not able
Somebody's asking for a donation link, and I'm not able to get the information on the chat thing.
Really? So you're banned from chat?
No, I think it's about the .com thing. I'm
Okay.
not positive.
All right. So we'll just tell you, look, go to my channel. If you're at my channel, if you look up at the bottom right of that's, by the way, that sunset that you see, that's the Sea of Galilee, if you didn't know, in the picture on my channel. Far right, there's a donate button for those that want to help. And thank you for those that do support this ministry. You cast your lot with this ministry, and that means a lot to us. That says a lot. That means that you've literally invested in what we do in getting this word. It's a very important word. People need to wake up and know what's coming out of them, who they are, and what to do. Revelation says, folks, and there's a place where it says, come out of her. Come out of Babylon. This is more, okay, this is bigger than Iraq. There's a spiritual context here. That spiritual Babylon is obviously the United States. We're going to see that fall. You have seen it, this channel, in the codes where I've showed you. And it seems like we're batting 1,000 here, if not 900s, in accuracy. Some of these things are happening that we've been talking about. We didn't see Assad flee yet. That's one I get hammered on when people say, well, I didn't
Okay, they want to know, but I'm sorry.
I haven't seen Assad flee from Syria yet. Well, it's still going on. It's yet to come. It took 700 years for Isaiah's prophecy to happen about Yeshua.
Someone asking about the emblem on your shirt.
That means it's the, if you can't see, that's the IDF paratrooper special forces group. This is from a friend of mine. I have several subscribers in Israel, and this one is in the military, and also got a subscriber in the military, the police. It's not military, it's just police, the Israeli police. So they send me things, and this is from the paratroopers. And I do, by the way, support the state of Israel, even though they're secular. This is about the people, not the Knesset folks, even though the religious are just 2%. At 14 to 16 million Jews, this is the 3 tribes that I told you about, 2.5, it's 14 million. That's known of. All right, so there's 12 others, because we got Ephraim and Manasseh. So, and I told you in another video that a friend of mine who's a mathematician did some compounding on that numbers based on numbers given of the tribes and how much that was recorded there, and and based on how they went into Egypt and come out at certain numbers. This is some mathematics, and you could figure it out. And he placed it somewhere over 600 million worldwide. That's a lot of people. Some people say, well, we're only talking about 144,000. That's the ones that are sealed. There's still many from those tribes, many from those tribes. Okay, Yeshua didn't come just for 104,000, or just for a handful, or just that group. But he did have an appointed portion. He didn't have the whole world. The whole world wouldn't receive him. But there is great numbers, and you are most definitely part of that. But if you're not receiving this, maybe you're not. You may not be part of that. So, who knows? We're going to do some studying tonight in this book that is from, what's his author's name?
Stephen M. Collins.
Stephen M. Collins. He knows more than I in the academia part of this topic, so we're going to explore what he has to say. And this is a first for me. Darla has already pre-read some of this. I've had other duties to attend, but from what she's telling me, it seems like valid information that we need to cover and see where these tribes went, because they went somewhere. They didn't just drop off the face of the earth. This is about punishment that Yahuwah placed on this nation because of their iniquity. If you go to Ezekiel chapter 4, I was going to say verse 4 again. Chapter 4 of Ezekiel, where he is required to lie on one side for so many days for Judah and lie on the other for so many days for Israel. This is for us to understand and for us to calculate, because there's a sod in here. Because you can calculate these things. It can be proven. And so there was a curse. And this curse was put on both tribes. Judah, which is Judah, Manasseh, part of Manasseh, and Benjamin went into captivity in Babylon. And they served 70 years. That was it. They came back. That was for the Shemitah, by the way. Now, Ephraim was the wild ass, the cake unturned, the one that was just, out there doing some stuff. They were sacrificing babies to Moloch. I mean, they were building temples to other Elohims. They went chasing after other Elohim. They did it all. They went for the fast lane. And Yahuwah, he divorced them. And because of compounding amendment in Leviticus, which is the number 7 of their iniquity and their sin, this brought the number of years of their diaspora to 2,730 years. And here we are in that time. As a matter of fact, we're past that time. We're past that time, folks. We're in where many of you are still waking up. You're wiping off the sleep out of your eyes, because now you've figured out that a lot that you've been sold has really just been marketing and, just a bunch of hot air, talking about this and that and rapture and all these things, and inserting stuff into the Bible and bringing in other texts and calling it scriptures. And so that's why we did the video on getting back to the roots, and how here we are. We're going to see where these people went. And I think you may be surprised in who you are.
I think we should read Genesis 15 real quick.
Genesis 15, the whole chapter.
Yeah.
After these events, the word of Yahuwah came to Abram in a vision, saying, "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward is exceedingly great." And Abram said, "Adonai Yahuwah, what would you give me, seeing I go childless? And heir to my house is Eleazar of Damascus." And Abram said, "See, you have given me no seed. And see, one is born in my house, and is my heir." And see, the word of Yahuwah came to him, saying, "This one is not your heir, but he who comes from your own body is your heir." And he brought him outside and said, "Look towards the Shamayim and count the stars, if you are able to count them." And he said to them, so is your seed." And he believed in Yahuwah, and he reckoned it to him for righteousness. This is something amazing right here. Because Abraham believed what Yahuwah told him, he accounted it unto righteousness unto him. And he said unto him, "I am Yahuwah, who brought you out of Ur Kasdim, to give you this land to inherit it." And he said, "Adonai Yahuwah, whereby do I know that I possess it?" And he said unto him, "Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, and a 3-year-old female goat, and a 3-year-old ram, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon." And he took all these things and cut them in the middle, and placed each half opposite the other. But he did not cut the birds. And the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, and Abram drove them away. And it became to be, when the sun going down, and in a deep sleep fell upon Abram, that see, a frightening and great darkness fell upon him. And he said to Abram, "Know for a certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. But a nation whom they serve I'm going to judge, and afterward let them come out with great possessions. Now, as for you, you are to go to your fathers in peace. You are to be buried at a good old age. Then, in the fourth generation, they shall return here, for the wickedness of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to be that when the sun went down, and it was dark, that see a smoke oven and a burning torch passing between the two pieces. This was Yahuwah coming down to seal the deal. This was a covenant being made here, folks, and there was animals that were killed and sacrificed. And it wasn't a permissive will. This was a commandment by Yahuwah in Genesis. That's not permissive will, that's commandment, folks. Understand that. For covenant, there had to be blood shed. And then they walk in between the pieces. And on that day, Yahuwah made a covenant with Abraham, saying, I have given this land to your seed, from the river of the Mitzrayim to the great river, and the river Perath. And the Kenite, and the Kenzanite, and the Cadmonite, and the Hittite, and the Pezerite, and the Rephaim, and the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Girgashite, and the Jebusites. And that is Genesis 15. Now we could go and read Genesis 48.
Check that one out real quick.
Want to hear it?
Yeah, because we're going
This is on down. This is his seed, folks. We're going to track it on down. Now imagine that. He's looking at the stars, and here's this view that we have at night. There's no pollution of the city lights. You can see billions and billions of stars. You can see the Milky Way like you've never seen. Here, it's amazing. It's innumerable. And this is what he's told. This is what your seed would be. That's a lot of people, folks. There's 6 million Jews killed, and the Holocaust was not all of the tribes. There were many hidden.
You can maybe start here.
And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Yisrael, his left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Yisrael's right hand. And he crossed his hands over like this to the other one that was, he did things backwards as he was supposed to do, in other words. Yahuwah always does seem to do things like that, doesn't he? Contrary to what seems to be right. And Yisrael stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's hand, and who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, consciously directing his hands for Manasseh was the firstborn. Then he baraked Joseph and said, the Elohim before whom my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak walked, the Elohim whom has fed me all my life to this day, the messenger whom has redeemed me from all the evil barak, the use, and let my name be called upon them, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Yitzhak, and let them increase to a multitude in the midst of the earth. Now this is translated, this is the Gentiles, folks. We know exactly who this is. And when Joseph saw that his father had laid right hand on his head of Ephraim, it was evil in his eyes, and he took hold of his father's hand and to remove it, and the head of Ephraim to the head of Manasseh. And Joseph said to his father, not so. And Joseph said to his father, not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. But he also becomes a great people. And he is also great. And yet his younger brother is a greater than he. And his seed is to become the completeness of the nations, which is translated fullness of the Gentiles. You've heard Yeshua said, when the fullness of the Gentiles comes in. Who was he grafted in? He was grafted in the Gentiles. These same nations, these same ones who were, quote, lost, they were never lost, folks. He knew exactly where they were. He spread his seed like a farmer in the field. And one day there would be a harvest. And amidst those seeds, there would be foreign seed that would grow. that when they all are harvest, the true grain, some wheat, is threshed and is winnowed, it goes to the storehouse. The tares, which is harvest with it, the chaff, and all of this that is useless, that would not bow down to the wind, this is burned in the fire. This is a portion. It's not the whole world, but there is a portion. It's a great portion, but nonetheless, he said, and we heard in the video that I did, not all of the world. He didn't pray for the whole world, just a portion. All right, so do we get started now?
Yeah,
Or do we start taking... All right, so this is what I'm going to turn it over to Darla, let her read, because she's a better reader than I, and I'm going to get out of this sweatshirt, because it is kind of warm here, and kind of freshen up, because we started late and just kind of jumped right in. That's why I didn't have a lot of songs and everything lined up, guys. So, little secret there. Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys, this is a long chapter. I think it's very exciting. I read it last week. Stephen Collins has about 4 books, I think, in this series, and they go from the beginning of history, I guess, until this is current. So we're going to the very last chapter of the last book, as far as I know here. Chapter 3, the tribes of Israel in the modern world. This final chapter presents a double challenge. First, we will identify the tribes of Israel in the modern world based upon secular history, biblical prophecy, and the characteristics of modern nations. While this may seem daunting, the substantial weight of evidence contained in preceding chapters and the clarity of biblical prophecies about many of the Israelite tribes in the modern era actually makes this the easier of the 2 challenges. The second challenge is in presenting the evidence itself. While truth should ideally stand on its own merits, it must be presented in a positive and inspirational way to the world with many political and emotional sensitivities. In order to identify Israel in the modern world, it is necessary to examine the ethnic and national histories of other nations who figure in biblical history and prophecies concerning Elohim's people. It is hoped that the following introductory comments will set a dispassionate tone for this chapter's material. It is vitally important to realize that identifying the tribes of Israel in the modern world imparts no sense of racial superiority to the nations so identified. Israel was chosen for the purpose of being Elohim's servant people and a blessing to all families of the earth. This book expressly disassociates itself from any effort or intent to convey a sense of racial superiority to any of the modern nations of the tribes of Israel. Indeed, this book disavows any negativity toward other races or racial supremacy theories, no matter what their nature. This book does assert the supremacy of Yahuwah over the affairs and destinies of nations and the supremacy of the Scripture's version of world history over unscientific and unconfirmed dogmas. The Scriptures present information about races and nations in a dispassionate manner, and so will this book. The modern nations of the tribes of Israel enjoy their wealth, power, and geopolitical advantages because of a covenant that Yahuwah originally made with a man named Abraham. All of Abraham's descendants, whether Israelites, Jews, Ishmaelites, Edomites, or others, have enjoyed various degrees of blessings because of the Abrahamic covenant. The best blessings of the Abrahamic covenant went to the Israelite tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, the dominant tribes of the so-called lost 10 tribes of Israel. Genesis 48, 8-20, which we just read most of that just now. The Israelites were not chosen by Elohim to receive so many temporal blessings because they were stronger, better, or smarter than other nations. Elohim stated to the Israelites in Deuteronomy 7:7, "It was not because you were more in number than any other people that Yahuwah set his love upon you and chose you, for you were the fewest of all peoples, but it is because Yahuwah loves you and is keeping the oath which he swore to your fathers." The fathers referred to are Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob, or Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After Abraham demonstrated his willingness to sacrifice Yitzhak At Yahuwah's command, Yahuwah literally swore he would pour special blessings out on Abraham's descendants. Genesis 22:15-18. Elohim placed himself literally under oath to implement these tremendous blessings to Abraham's descendants, but the best blessings went to the birthright tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, as we know as Manasseh. In Deuteronomy 10:22, Elohim reminded the Israelites that they began as only 70 persons when Jacob led his clan into Egypt, but Yahuwah had multiplied their numbers into a huge multitude by the time of the Exodus. When Elohim ended their Egyptian captivity, Israel's tribes were a race of dehumanized slaves. They could never have freed themselves from the power of Egypt or bequeathed to themselves what their descendants have today. While it is true that Yahuwah interacted almost exclusively with Israel during Old Testament times, the New Testament leveled the playing field for all of Elohim's people. For example, Galatians 2:11-14 records that the Apostle Paul openly chided the early Galatian church, and even Peter, his fellow apostle, for dividing into ethnically separate fellowship groups. Yahushua HaMashiach, the Messiah's commission to his disciples, clearly stated that all people of all nations were equally eligible for a personal relationship with Yahuwah. In Matthew 28:19, Yahushua told his followers, "Go you therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Ruach HaKodesh," who we know as the Holy Spirit. Yahushua, the Messiah, presented himself as an equal opportunity Savior for all nations and ethnic groups. Any attempt to use the scriptures to construct a message of racial superiority or to justify racial hatred deeply misrepresents the scriptures, the word of Yahuwah. However, it is equally true that many scriptural promises and prophecies pertain only to Israelite nations. Since the New Testament did not annul these unique blessings and prophecies, they are still in effect today. Yahushua HaMashiach stated in Matthew 5:17, "I am not come to destroy the law or the prophets." Yahushua made it very clear that his ministry would not destroy or annul Old Testament prophecies. Therefore, Yahushua HaMashiach, the Messiah, affirmed the binding nature of Old Testament prophecies and promises concerning the tribes of Israel throughout New Testament times. People in nations who rediscover their Israelite roots have every right to a sense of wholesome pride in their heritage and forefathers' accomplishments throughout history. Such heritage reaches far beyond the accomplishments of a few scriptural heroes. As the reader now knows, Israel's heritage includes the histories of Phoenicia, Carthage, Parthia, Scythia, the Saxons, the Celts, the Goths, and other nations. So this would have been information in the previous readings. However, non-Israelite nations have a right to a sense of pride in their unique heritages as well. There are also many nations in the modern world that are descended from Abraham, even though they are not Israelites. Such nations have also shared in some of the blessings of the Abrahamic covenant. For example, the Arab nations are the modern descendants of Ishmael, the firstborn son of Abraham, as discussed in the first chapter of this book. Because of their descent from Abraham, the Arabs are actually the distant relatives of the modern Israelite nations. However, this chapter will focus on the history and locations of the modern tribes of Israel. So this is specifically about the 12 sons of Jacob. The Bible has specific clues about the roles and locations of the tribes of Israel in prophecies about a period of time called the latter days. However, there are no nations in the modern world called Manasseh and Ephraim, the house of Israel, or Judah, even though the Bible uses those ancient names to describe nations in latter-day prophecies. Therefore, one must identify which modern nations have descended from those ancient nations before any biblical prophecies for the modern world can be accurately understood. Many readers of this book already are persuaded that we are now living in the biblically prophesied latter days. Numerous books by authors in many Christian denominations have been written documenting much evidence that we are living in the latter days. However, for those readers not familiar with biblical prophecies about the latter days, a few of the most important latter day prophecies will be briefly discussed. One major prophecy recognized widely in Christendom as a key latter-day prophecy is Zephaniah 2:1-7, which prophesied that a remnant of Judah would reestablish a nation in the Holy Land just prior to the day of Yahuwah, the time of Elohim's intervention in human affairs. The terms day of Yahuwah, the latter days, and the time of the end are roughly synonymous in pertaining to the climactic period of human events. Zephaniah's prophecy was fulfilled with striking accuracy in 1948 when a Jewish nation was formally established in the Holy Land. Zephaniah 2:6-7 foretold that Judah, the Jews, would have a nation on the seacoast in the old land of ancient Israel. So that's where it is if you want to go look it up. Zephaniah 2:6-7. When the British Mandate ended in 1948, the Jewish nation began mostly on a narrow strip of land along the seacoast of the Holy Land. This event unfolded exactly as the scriptures had foretold it long ago. The ability of Elohim of the scriptures to fulfill prophecies written millennia ago confirms that he is active in world events even today. Since no independent Jewish nation had existed for many centuries, the establishment of a sovereign Jewish nation in the exact place prophesied by Zephaniah is a very crucial prophetic indicator that the latter-day period of mankind's history had begun by 1948. A second major prophecy was given by Yahushua HaMashiach, the Messiah, himself in Matthew 24 in response to questions from his disciples about what signs would indicate that his second coming, the climax of the latter days, was imminent. He foretold that may I have that water, please? Thank you. Just one moment. All right. He foretold that a great crisis would occur which could result in the extinction of all flesh on earth unless divine intervention halted the crisis. See verse 22. It was impossible for any man-made crisis to literally threaten all life on earth until nuclear weapons were invented at the close of World War II. In the post-World War II period, nuclear weapons have become so numerous and powerful that nuclear warfare literally could destroy all life on earth, satisfying Yahushua's prophecy about the latter days preceding his second coming. Chemical and bacteriological weapons add to the ability of mankind to destroy all flesh. Notice that this prophecy does not state all flesh will be destroyed. Yahuwah's intervention will not allow that to occur, but the prophecy indicates that technology would exist in the latter days which made such a global extinction possible. A third critical latter-day prophecy is found in Daniel 12:4. It predicted that the time of Elohim's divine intervention would be preceded by a great knowledge explosion, which has also occurred in the 20th century and especially in the post-World War II period. Mankind progressed from horse carriages to space vehicles in less than a century. It has gone from paper and pencil to the widespread availability of powerful computer technology in the homes of many millions of people in mere decades. Computers and other forms of modern technology have transformed human societies in an unprecedented manner. The knowledge explosion foretold by the prophet Daniel has occurred in modern society, further marking our modern era as the latter days or time of the end. Finally, Revelation 9:7-17 prophesied that human weaponry in the latter days would include A, armor-plated war machines which would fly like locusts and generate loud noises in their wings, and B, armored land-going war machines which would issue fire and smoke out of their mouths. The Apostle John saw these futuristic weapons in vision and described them as best he could in the vocabulary of his time. Today's modern jet warplanes, attack helicopters, and heavy tanks were accurately foreseen in this prophecy from the book of Revelation. The above prophecies confirm that the modern post-World War II period constitutes the biblically prophesied latter days to precede the second coming of Yahushua HaMashiach. With this introduction, we can begin our search for the modern tribes of Israel, knowing that latter-day prophecies about them apply to current nations in our modern world. The Bible is emphatic that Israel's tribes will be prominent, identifiable nations in the latter days, and it gives us many specific clues to help locate them. Thank you. Those who maintain that the lost 10 tribes of Israel no longer exist or cannot be identified are denying and opposing the word of Yahuwah. The same Elohim who inspired the scriptures made many prophecies concerning the future of the tribes of Israel. The scriptures' credibility stands or falls on whether the tribes of Israel are present on earth today. Indeed, if scriptural prophecies about the futures of the 10 tribes of Israel could be disproved, the foundations of Christianity and Judaism crumble as well, since those religions are based on beliefs that the scriptures are the infallible word of Yahuwah. Conversely, if Elohim's prophecies about Israel's tribes can be substantiated, it provides a powerful witness of the scripture's divine authorship and confirms that an active creator, Elohim, is involved in the world's affairs. Defining the search areas. The most important scriptural clue for finding the modern 10 tribes of Israel is to look for nations that have received the specific blessings of the Abrahamic covenant. Those blessings included large populations, national wealth and power, possession of national resources, and the gates or geopolitical choke points of their enemies. One conclusion is obvious. One must look for the 10 tribes of Israel among the large, wealthy, and powerful nations of the earth, because that is where Yahuwah promised they would be. Efforts to locate the 10 tribes' descendants in scattered little bands around the world are doomed to failure. Secular history contains abundant evidence that the 10 tribes left Asia during the Great Caucasian migrations into Europe. Also, their numbers were so numerous that they overwhelmed and inundated the Roman Empire. Their modern descendants will also be numerous. Earlier chapters trace the migrations of the 10 tribes of Israel into new homelands where they became known as Carthaginians, Celts, Parthians, Scythians, Sacae, Goths, and other tribes. Asian tribes such as the Gothae or Getae, the Sacae, Jats, and Germani migrated into Europe where they were known as the Goths, Saxons, Jutes, Germans, and other early nations. Clearly, we must focus our search among those modern nations that have descended from the Israelite tribes who migrated into Europe in the Great Caucasian migrations. We must also not overlook some of the native Celtic populations of Europe. Books 1 and 2 in this series detailed much evidence that large numbers of Israelites migrated to Europe in 1100 to 700 BC, either as colonists or as refugees in search of new homelands. Another guideline for locating the Israelite tribes today is the unmistakable biblical record that the Israelite tribes are descended from Shem. Therefore, they must be located among the Semitic, white or Caucasian nations. As evidence of this fact, historical records confirm that one of the tribes of Israel in Asia, the Ephthalites or Nephtalites, i.e. the tribe of Naphtali, was called the White Huns due to their being members of the white race. The Ephthalites were one of many Sacae tribes in Asia named after Isaac or Yitzhak. They called it Sacae. Their related Sacae or Saka tribes would also be members of the white fair-skinned races. Also, the artwork of the Scythians and the coins of the Parthians depicted their people and rulers as Semitic Caucasian people. The Goths who migrated into Europe from Asia were often described by contemporary historians as being tall, with fair complexions, blue eyes, and yellow hair. That the Goths were blue-eyed blondes makes our identification process easier. Almost everyone knows where the blue-eyed blondes are located in Europe today. They are the Nordic peoples who came to reside in Scandinavia, Northern Europe, and in other nations as well. While the Goths mostly went into Southern and Central Europe, they were also called a Germanic people because of their close affinity to the Germanic tribes. Many Germanic tribes migrated into Northern Europe, so the blue-eyed blondes trait can be found in more than one location. The reader should not assume that all Israelites are blue-eyed blondes. That would be very inaccurate. To comprehend this point, we need to examine the original nuclear family from which all the tribes of Israel descended. An elementary application of genetics will show that there will be a variety of characteristics among the ancient and modern Israelite tribes. The original tribes of Israel resulted from the combination of several different bloodlines. While the 12 forebears of the tribes of Israel had the same father, Jacob or Israel, they came from Jacob's unions with 4 different women.
Yeah, 4 baby mamas.
6 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Louis, Yehuda, Issachar, and Zebulun, were born to Jacob and his first wife. 2 sons, Joseph and Benjamin, were born to Jacob via his second wife, Rachel. 2 sons, Gad and Asher, were born to Jacob and Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, while 2 more sons, Dan and Naphtali, were born to Jacob and Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid. The account of these births can be read in Genesis 29 and 30, with the exception of the youngest son, Benjamin, whose birth is recorded in Genesis 35:18. This formative Israelite family was not one big happy family.
It was very dysfunctional, very. Yeah.
It existed in a culture with customs alien to our modern society, some of which accounted for severe stresses in Jacob's family. Jacob's family will be examined here because some of its dynamics and the hereditary traits of his sons resurface in the prophecies about the tribes of Israel in the modern world. Jacob was initially victimized by a cultural tradition of the time that the eldest sister had to be married first. He was tricked into marrying Leah, the eldest sister of Rachel, instead of Rachel herself. His prospective father-in-law worked this deception by getting Jacob so drunk on his wedding night that he couldn't even recognize his wife in their honeymoon tent. Genesis 29, 21 to 27 states that Jacob's father-in-law made a feast, no doubt with much alcohol, on the wedding day before Jacob slept with his first wife. And verse 25 adds that Jacob didn't even realize whom he had slept with until the morning after. Imagine Jacob's reaction when he awoke with a fierce hangover and saw that he had married Leah, not Rachel. This marriage was no bed of roses for Leah either, as she knew Jacob did not desire her. One wonders what words Leah heard that from Jacob's drunken lips on their wedding night that were intended for Rachel's ears, not Leah's. Since polygamy was normal in those days, Jacob married Rachel as well, but this built severe stresses into the family. Can you imagine the tensions in a family in which one man was married to 2 sisters, one wanted and the other unwanted? A second cultural trait of the time was that large families were prized and childlessness was a stigma.
Can I just point this out? I think this is a really good point. You know, he struggled in the womb with his brother. And here now in his marriage, even in his marriage, you know, Jacob was a blessed man, but he had a lot of problems, guys. Even within his marriage, he marries 2 sisters. Now imagine this. You've seen this show, Sister Wives, right? It never goes good. There's always jealousy and bitterness and things like that. And there was a lot of bitterness in Jacob's family, folks. This was the affliction of who he was and what came out of him. But the struggle with his wives, I think that parallels there with who he was in the womb with his brother.
A second cultural trait of the time was that large families were prized and childlessness was a stigma. In view of this, the 2 sisters embarked on a competition to see who could produce the most children. While Leah produced 6 sons, Rachel was initially barren. To catch up with her sister, she had Bilhah, her servant, serve as a surrogate mother for 2 sons, which were deemed to be Rachel's children. Leah decided 2 could play at that game, and soon Jacob was also sleeping with Leah's maid, Zilpah, for the same purpose. Each maid produced 2 sons, and Rachel finally produced 2 natural-born sons. Leah won the birthing contest, 8 sons to 4. Genesis 30, 14 to 16 records an episode in which Rachel and Leah played Let's Make a Deal about who would sleep with Jacob on a particular night. Rachel bartered the right to sleep with Jacob for some mandrakes, a plant supposed to facilitate pregnancy. They're called love apples. Since Rachel was still barren at that time, she made this trade in an attempt to boost her chances of fertility. Poor Jacob must have felt like the proverbial piece of meat. Not only did he have 2 wives, but he also began sleeping with 2 other women as well at the insistence of his wives. The progeny of these multiple unions likely divided into cliques based on their maternal origins. There were some very unhappy times in this original Israelite family. In modern terms, it would have been called a very dysfunctional family. However, what happened confirms that Elohim can work his will through any kind of human circumstances. Many readers are familiar with the account of Joseph being sold into slavery by his brothers after Reuben intervened to keep him from being murdered by his other brothers. Genesis 37:12-36. This account shows the offspring of 3 of the women ganging up on Joseph, the offspring of the 4th woman. While Reuben, the oldest, had the honorable intention of freeing Joseph, he failed to follow through with his good intentions. Reuben had other problems as well. He committed incest with Bilhah, the mother of his 2 half-brothers, Dan and Naphtali, Genesis 35:22. This act created even greater tensions in the family. While Reuben had problems controlling his physical passions, 2 of Leah's other sons, Simeon and Louis, were hotheads, massacring all the males in a village and seizing their wives and property because they thought, perhaps mistakenly, that one of them had raped their sister. Genesis 34. Jacob's own actions made matters worse as he flagrantly treated Joseph as a favorite son, turning Joseph's half-brothers against him. Jacob's family was so messed up that the reality of their situation would probably be rejected as too outlandish a plot for even a modern soap opera. However, for purposes of determining hereditary traits, the genes of the 12 sons of Jacob were drawn from 5 separate gene pools: Jacob and the 4 mothers. Many of the sons must have had little resemblance to one another, other than having fair skin and other physical characteristics common to Semitic people. By the time these sons matured enough to marry and have their own children, the hereditary gene pool of the Israelites became even more diverse. We are not told the marriage partners of all the sons, but each of those unions would have added more divergence to the gene pools of the individual tribes of Israel. Judah, the 4th son of Jacob, married a Canaanite woman who bore at least 3 sons. 2 of them had such abominable character that Yahuwah himself executed them. Genesis 38:1-10. This first Israelite family already included such sins as incest, fornication, mass murder, and selling one's own brother into slavery. None of these sins were bad enough to motivate Yahuwah to execute anyone, so one can only wonder at how sinful the first 2 sons of Judah were to merit being personally executed by Yahuwah. Besides having children via a Canaanite wife, who may have been a darker-skinned woman, Judah also begat children through his daughter-in-law Tamar, of unspecified race, so the tribe of Judah included varied bloodlines. Genesis 38:2-30. Joseph married an Egyptian princess, Genesis 41:45, so the tribe of Joseph would have developed different characteristics than the other tribes, whose founders had taken wives from the races living in Canaan. When the Israelites entered the land and lived in separate tribal regions, tradition and geography made it easier for people to marry within their own tribe, reinforcing the distinctive traits of each tribe. The descendants of the tribes of Israel intermarried among themselves and other non-Israelite peoples during the millennia that followed. So the physical appearances and characteristics of the various tribes of Israel would have varied considerably in complexion, hair and eye color, and physiognomy.
Physiology?
No, physiognomy.
It is. Well.
No. Based on the facts of history, the modern Israelite tribes will not exhibit the same physical traits. Returning to a more modern context, while many Goths, Israelites migrating into Europe, were described as blue-eyed blondes, there were many dark-eyed, dark-haired people among the Israelite tribes as well. Indeed, since blue eyes are a recessive genetic trait, there would logically be more dark-eyed Israelites than blue-eyed Israelites. The purpose of examining the initial Israelite gene pools is to make it clear that when we look for the tribes of Israel today, it is a mistake to look for people that all look or act alike. The various Israelite tribes have appeared and acted differently since the first 12 sons of Jacob were born. Many biblical keys to identifying the tribes of Israel in the modern world are found in Genesis 49. Elohim gave this prophecy about modern or latter-day Israelites approximately 3,600 years ago through the patriarch Yaakov. The first verse of this chapter says, "And Yaakov called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days." So that's where we need to start listening. The phrase "in the last days" is synonymous with the latter days. Both last and latter are translated from the same Hebrew word. As we shall see, the Genesis 49 clues lead us to specific nations in the world today, further confirming that we are now in the latter days and that there is an Elohim who is even today overseeing world events to implement his prophecies. Both biblical and secular evidence requires us to look for the modern Israelite tribes in Europe and those nations that were founded by European nations. However, a modern fact must be noted. Since Europe and North America, which were colonized by European nations, have received influxes of many millions of non-Europeans over the centuries, there are many citizens in modern Israelite nations who are not hereditary Israelites. However, as long as they reside in Israelite nations, their future destinies will be linked to that of their host Israelite country. Therefore, biblical prophecies are important for all citizens in nations identified as modern Israelite nations, regardless of their racial background. Additionally, the scriptures include assimilation laws by which members of any race or ethnic group could merge into the Israelite tribes. Leviticus 19:33-34 states, "If a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall do him no wrong. The stranger who sojourns with you shall be to you as the native among you." Ezekiel 47:22-23 adds, "The strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you, they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. In what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall you give him his inheritance, says Yahuwah Elohim." These scriptures allow for the assimilation of non-Israelites into the tribes of Israel.
That's the word. That is the word I was looking for earlier. Assimilation. That is what my family chose to do, was to assimilate with non-Jews. That was the word. Here it is. Thank you, Abba.
In order to be assimilated into the tribes of Israel, these strangers or Gentiles had to sojourn with the Israelites. The context of many scriptural examples is that such sojourners had to serve the Elohim of Israel and merge into Israelite society. This privilege did not apply to those who wanted to worship foreign mighty ones. Under this principle, many members of other races and ethnic groups who have migrated into the modern nations of the tribes of Israel have become de facto members of the Israelite tribes in the eyes of Yahuwah. Even in the Old Testament, Yahuwah welcomed people of other races into the tribes of Israel if they agreed to serve and obey the Elohim of Israel. We will begin with the easiest tribes to identify in order that subsequent identifications will become easier via the process of elimination. The original 12 tribes of Israel actually expanded to 13 tribes when the tribe of Joseph was subdivided into the 2 tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, as we read in Genesis 48 just a little bit ago. All the tribes have scripturally and historically revealed traits that assist in identifying them. The scriptures discuss the positive and negative attributes of the Israelite tribes in a dispassionate manner, and so will the remainder of this chapter in an effort to identify the modern tribes of Israel. We will begin with Ephraim and Manasseh, the birthright tribes of Israel. Ephraim and Manasseh, the birthright tribes. Ephraim and Manasseh were the chief tribes of the house of Israel, and the scriptures offer much information about them. The tribe of Joseph was subdivided into the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, or Manasseh. The 2 sons of Joseph who jointly received the birthright blessings in Genesis 48:16. We read that tonight. Joseph is a well-known biblical personality. His coat of many colors, his being sold into slavery and framed by Potiphar's wife, and his promotion to be Egypt's leader under Pharaoh are oft-repeated Bible stories. As a youth, Joseph had dreams which foreshadowed that he would become the greatest among his brethren. Genesis 37:5-11 And he was the favorite son of Jacob, Genesis 37, 1-4. Unfortunately, Joseph was naive in telling his family about these dreams without realizing that this would offend them. As a result, his brothers developed hatred toward Joseph and later sold him into slavery. After Joseph was exalted to a rulership position in Egypt, he had to wrestle with feelings of vengeance as he tested his brothers incognito. Joseph came to see that his other brothers had developed real remorse over what they had done to him. Genesis 42, 18-23. And this facilitated a reconciliation. When Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, they were scared speechless. Genesis 45, 3. They knew Joseph exercised life and death power in Egypt and had the power to execute them or sell them all into slavery as they had done to him.
Hey, can we just stop right here and point something out? Because this is really important. This is a picture of Yeshua. This is the same thing that happens. As a matter of fact, it is when Judah and Simeon repent that Yeshua reveals himself to them just in this same way. It's the same picture. It's the foreshadow of that will come. And we know this from the prophets and what they've already said that will happen. They'll see the one that's pierced, and they'll weep bitterly as if for loss of a son. And this is why, right here.
Pull this chair up a little bit. There we go. Oh, so much better. All right. They knew Joseph exercised life and death power in Egypt and had the power to execute them or sell them all into slavery as they had done to him. However, Joseph forgave them and magnanimously cared for them and their families. This account shows that a merciful, magnanimous attitude toward former enemies was a core personality trait of Joseph. This trait of being merciful to former enemies also characterized Joseph's progeny, his children, as we shall see. The birthright promises of the Abrahamic covenant included A, great nationhood, Elohim's blessing of their friends and cursing of their enemies, and the ability to bless the other nations of the earth. B, great population growth. That first one was Genesis 12, 2-3, and that great population growth is Genesis 13, 15-16. And C, the promise of growth into many nations, Genesis 17, 4-7. In Genesis 22, 16-18, Yahuwah reiterated his promise of explosive population growth and added a promise that Abraham's descendants would possess the gate of his enemies. These birthright promises were passed from Yitzhak or Isaac to Jacob with the following words, Genesis 27, 26-29. Elohim give you of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Cursed be everyone that curses you, and blessed be he that blesses you. Agricultural blessings were included in this birthright, including soil fertility, food surpluses, good climates, and the promise of dominance over other nations. This promise of agricultural bounty indicates Joseph's descendants would live in the earth's temperate zones, which are most suited for agricultural surpluses. In Genesis 28:14, Yahuwah promised Abraham's seed would.
And let me just say, this is why he also taught them Shemitah, the 7-year rest of the land. This was an agricultural. Sorry, I had to close the window there. It's a little cool breeze coming in. So this is an agricultural people, and so this is what we're seeing right here.
Okay, Genesis 28:14, Yahuwah promised Abraham's seed would be as the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. Moments away. You see this here? CPU issues. Okay.
That happens every week.
All right. This shows that Jacob's descendants would not only have large populations, but would spread abroad all across the earth. Elohim again reaffirmed the promise of a huge population growth for Jacob's descendants in Genesis 35, 11-12, and added a promise that a nation and a company of nations shall be of you. The above promises were not conditioned on the obedience of the future generations that would receive these promised blessings. Yahuwah gave these blessings to future descendants of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov because of the obedience of those patriarchs. While all of Abraham's descendants would share these blessings, the lion's share of these blessings were inherited by the tribes of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh. In Genesis 48, Jacob, who was also called Israel, gave the birthright promises to Ephraim and Manasseh, the two sons of Joseph. They were each to be reckoned as individual tribes of the nation Israel. Verse 5. When Jacob put his right hand on Ephraim, Joseph's younger son, it made Ephraim the primary recipient of the blessing. So that's the power of the right hand. Manasseh was the eldest son, but Jacob blessed him with the left hand, making him a joint but secondary recipient of this birthright promise. Symbolically, this meant that Ephraim inherited Joseph's status as one of the 12 tribes of Israel, but that Manasseh was grandfathered in as a 13th tribe of Israel. Israel blessed them with these words, verses 14 to 16. And Israel stretched out his hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, and said, Let my name be named on them, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak, and let them grow into a multitude. With these words, the birthright promises of the Abrahamic covenant were given to Ephraim and Manasseh. The other tribes of Israel were not destined to receive the fullness of the birthright blessings, as were the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. These were Joseph's sons. Ephraim and Manasseh would become the most populous tribes of Israel, requiring the greatest amount of territory for their large populations. It is vital to notice.
Explosive. This is exponential growth that they had. Now think about that, folks. I told you 600 million.
It is vital to notice that this prophetic blessing involved the names Israel and Yitzhak being placed on the two tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. For this reason, whenever the scriptures thereafter uses the term Israel in history or prophecy, it often designates the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. After Israel went into captivity, the name Isaac was firmly placed on many of the Israelites in Asia, as they were called Sakae, that's S-A-C-A-E, Sakae, or Saka, S-A-K-A, or Saxons, S-A-X-O-N-E-S, and Saxons, S-A-X-O-N-S. That comes from Isaac or Yitzhak. In Scythia, Parthia, and Europe, notice the word Sakacene at the gateway to the Caucasus Mountains in the lower portion of the map below, as well as Iberia, named after the Hebrew patriarch Eber. Let's see if I can give you guys a shot of this map.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see the Caspian Sea there. I wish we had like screenshots.
Yeah.
We could do this with this, folks. But you work with what you got. With what
Yeah,
you
you
got.
can always pause it and take a look at the map. Okay, so the tribe of Manasseh, we're going to talk about them next, okay?
I want to first of all, let's talk about the emblems on there. Points show that of Ephraim and Manasseh. You see those emblems? This is the representation of Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, does that look familiar to you, folks? Because on the currency that you have in this country, I don't know about in Britain, but in this country, you'll have an eagle clutching both of those things, arrows and olive branch. You see that?
Very good.
So that is, really important to point out, because these two horns, and this is where you'll find also the mention of unicorn in the Bible, talking about these two horns that come up. One is greater than the other. This is the representation of the rhinoceros. These are the emblems we're fixing to talk about. Manasseh and Ephraim.
Okay. Let me open that window just a little bit. It's gotten warm again. We've had the strangest weather here, seriously. Okay. This is the tribe of Manasseh. So now we talked a little bit about Ephraim and Manasseh, the sons of Joseph. So now we're going to zoom in on the tribe of Manasseh, which is our first tribe we're looking at in detail here. In the third book of this series, we saw evidence that Ephraim's clans formed the backbone of the tribes that united to form the Parthian Empire, while one of the dominant tribes of the Scythians was the Massagetae. I'm going to spell that so you guys can know the word. Massagetae, Massagetae, the tribe of Manasseh. Even as the term House of Israel included the rest of the tribes of Israel who remained associated with Ephraim and Manasseh, the term Sacae, S-A-C-A-E, was also broadly applied to all the related tribes of Israel, which were led by Ephraim and Manasseh while they were in Parthia and Scythia in Asia. When the Scythians and Parthians migrated to Europe, the names Saxi, S-A-C-H-S-E, or Saxons, S-A-X-O-N-S, which means Sax, sons, remained upon them as they settled in the British Isles. But this name also remained on some related tribes who stayed on the mainland. Saxony in Germany and Alsace, A-L-S-A-C-E, in France. In Genesis 48:19, Jacob prophesied that Manasseh shall become a people and he also shall be great, but stated that Ephraim's descendants shall be greater than Manasseh, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations, more than one. With these words, Jacob gave to Manasseh and Ephraim the birthright blessings of Genesis 35:11, that their tribes would eventually include a nation and a company of nations. Genesis 48:19 foretold that the descendants of Ephraim would become the multitude of nations, while Manasseh's descendants would become a single great nation.
You need me to read?
I'm okay. It's just a little warm in here. Thank you.
It's just bright light. You regulate.
Oh, is that what's going on?
It looks like you've got a lot of light on you.
Okay. Yeah. Something's happening. Yeah, that light is probably better over there. All right. I think I'm right here.
Can you see now? I know it got too dark.
I know. I could see it. I could see it. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Genesis 48:19 foretold that the descendants of Ephraim would become the multitude of nations, while Manasseh's descendants would become a single great nation. I just overlapped that last sentence. The modern nations that have fulfilled the prophecies of the birthright tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh are England, the United States of America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. They easily fulfill the prophecies about large population. When you combine the populations of these modern nations, they are by far the most numerous nations of the modern tribes of Israel. So this is for Ephraim and Manasseh. I'm going to read them again. England, the United States of America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. They have fulfilled the prophecy about becoming a great nation and a great company of nations. The single great nation is the United States of America. The nations of the British Commonwealth, Great Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, are the prophesied company of nations. Therefore, the birthright prophecies identify the United States as Manasseh, and the nations of the British Commonwealth are identified as Ephraim. Even as Ephraim and Manasseh were brother tribes in ancient Israel, they are brother nations in the world today. The American and English nations share a common language, heritage, and culture, and they have rallied together as brothers in several important conflicts: 2 world wars, 2 wars in the Persian Gulf, and the war against the Taliban in Afghanistan, fought as part of the global war against terrorism. By the United States.
Sorry, I had it muted. I'm messing around. I'm sorry. I'm trying to interject here in these key points. I'm trying to end these key points so you don't
Was
miss
that
it.
just recently?
No, she'll just back up.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Just Let's just start back up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just in case. I'm sorry, guys. The
Oh, it's my fault. I keep interfering. I'm not a good producer.
I'm not sure I'm just going to back up a little bit, but it was an interesting paragraph anyway. Okay, here we go. The modern nations that have fulfilled the prophecies of the birthright tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh are England, the United States of America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. They easily fulfill the prophecies about large population. When you combine the populations of these modern nations, they are by far the most numerous nations of the modern tribes of Israel. They have fulfilled the prophecy about becoming a great nation and a great company of nations. The single great nation is the United States of America. The nations of the British Commonwealth, Great Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are the prophesied company of nations. Therefore, the birthright prophecies identify the United States as Manasseh, and the nations of the British Commonwealth are identified as Ephraim. Even as Ephraim and Manasseh were brother tribes in ancient Israel, they are brother nations in the world today. The American and English nations share a common language, heritage, and culture, and they have rallied together as brothers in several important conflicts. 2 world wars, 2 wars in the Persian Gulf, and the war against the Taliban in Afghanistan fought as part of the global war against terrorism. Since Ephraim was to be the greater of the two and received its birthright blessing first, we should expect that Ephraim would receive its inheritance before Manasseh. History fulfilled that expectation. Great Britain rose to international prominence long before the United States was even founded and was a major international power for centuries before being eclipsed by the United States in the post-World War II period. At its zenith, the British Empire ruled over many more nations in a far greater geographic area than the United States ever did. For a time it was true that the sun never set on the British Empire, because the British Empire ruled much of the world. At its zenith, it ruled over Great Britain, Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, many African nations, Egypt, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Ceylon, Burma, Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Eastern New Guinea, and many islands in Oceania. It was without question the most expansive empire in recorded history. According to the 1943 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, the British Empire once ruled 13 million square miles of the Earth's land surface. That was before British rule was extended over Palestine, Jordan, and Iraq after World War II. Britain's navies dominated the world's seas as well. Britannia rules the waves was a common axiom in Britain's glory days. The British Empire inherited the birthright promises of controlling the gates of its enemies, strategic choke points such as the Suez Canal, Gibraltar, and the Cape of Good Hope. British ownership of the Falkland Islands controlled access around Cape Horn between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, and its colony in Singapore controlled the strategic Strait of Malacca between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. The British Empire continued the heritage of the ancient maritime empires of Israel, Phoenicia, and Carthage. Even as ancient Israel's Phoenician Empire had a small homeland centered in Canaan and ruling over an entire network of colonies on other continents, so did Carthage and Great Britain. Ancient Israel and Carthage had a great advantage over their enemies, Greece and Rome, by their control of Gibraltar. So did Great Britain. The United States of America, Manasseh, began inheriting its birthright in the 20th century, and especially after World War II. For decades, the British Empire and America were an unbeatable team, able to dominate the world in peacetime and in warfare. Ephraim had enjoyed ascendancy for centuries, but Manasseh became ascendant over Ephraim after World War II. At its height, the United States ruled over the Philippines, Puerto Rico, Alaska, and Hawaii, which later became states, Cuba, and various islands in Oceania. The United States also built and controlled the Panama Canal, one of the world's most strategic gates. While the United States is more powerful than Great Britain in our modern world, the British Empire was greater in a historical sense. While Great Britain sought to aggressively expand its empire, the United States has exhibited an isolationist tendency in its history and has not sought to rule a large empire. While the British used their armies to hold conquered territory, America typically withdraws its armies quickly from conquered territory. In World Wars I and II, the Persian Gulf War, and other conflicts, America exhibited no desire to control an extended empire of conquered territory, even though it easily had the power to do so. The above traits of the British and Americans were also exhibited in ancient Israel and among the Parthians and Scythians. In ancient Israel's tribal allotments, Manasseh received a huge portion of land in one contiguous region. Ephraim received a tiny allotment, even though it was the leading tribe. This tribal division tells us something about the two tribes' temperaments. The people of Manasseh like to stay together in one physical region, and they like wide open spaces, whereas the Ephraimites are comfortable with a small homeland from which they send colonists to settle new colonies or nations. In ancient Israel's Phoenician Empire, Ephraim retained its small allotment of territory in ancient Israel, but sent its growing population overseas to settle the Phoenician colonies in Carthage, Spain, and the British Isles. These tribes manifested the same traits in their Asian homelands as well. The tribe of Manasseh, the Massagetae or Saké, chose the wide open spaces of the South Russian steppes as a homeland for their people. Manassehites like elbow room and are uncomfortable in small cramped regions. The tribe of Ephraim, the clans of which founded Parthia, lived among many other nations in the more densely populated regions of Mesopotamia and Medo-Persia. The Scythians were a mighty force that preferred to live and let live. The Massagetae obliterated a great Persian army led by Cyrus the Great, and they could have conquered and occupied Persia easily after killing Cyrus the Great and his army. They chose not to do so. The Scythians also shattered the Assyrian Empire and conquered all Asia from Egypt to Iran, but they voluntarily withdrew from all of their conquered territories within a few years. The tribe of Manasseh is isolationist and manifests no desire to rule an empire of foreign nations. Ephraim is exactly the reverse. In ruling over the distant lands of the Phoenician Empire from their capital in Samaria, and in ruling over an empire of diverse nations from their Parthian homeland, the Ephraimites prefer to hold on to conquered territory and unite diverse people in a far-flung empire. These traits have been repeated in the modern Manassehite nation known as the United States of America, and the modern Ephraimite nations led by Great Britain called the British Commonwealth. The United States had a world empire within its grasp when it emerged from World War II, virtually unscathed and in sole possession of the atomic bomb. It dominated the Western Hemisphere, and its armies occupied Japan, much of Europe, and most of the Pacific Ocean. Americans, like the ancient Scythians, disdained having an empire. America could have simply informed the entire world that it was imposing a Pax Americana on the world, enforced by its willingness to use the atomic bomb on dissenters. It could have ordered the Soviet Union to disarm and accept American overseers. Instead, America quickly called its troops home to civilian life as soon as the war ended, mothballed its immense fleets, or turned them into scrap metal and went back to living peacefully within its own borders. This duplicated the Scythians' actions in liberating the Holy Land, Mesopotamia, and Persia from the oppressiveness of the Assyrian Empire, and then recalling its armies back to Scythia and civilian life. If the Ephraimite British had emerged unscathed from World War II and they had sole possession of the atomic bomb, the ultimatums to other nations would likely have been issued in short order.
Stopping point.
Let's see how quickly we get to a stopping point.
Yeah.
Before we, if we're gonna
9:30 right now.
we can
People are saying at break time.
let's break it then. We can finish next week on. We're still on us, the United States. Those of us in the United States.
Now, this book, folks, let me just point out this book's only got 7 chapters, but they're very long, detailed
Yeah, they
chapters.
are. It's actually only 3 chapters, and we're in the 3rd
Oh,
chapter.
I thought you said
No.
it was 7 chapters.
No, there's 4 books.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and we're in the last chapter of the book.
Okay, my
Yes.
mistake. See,
Yeah.
we were really cutting the fat and getting down to the brass tacks of this,
Yeah.
guys, because, we've already gone through a lot. It's really a critical time we're in.
We read 22 pages.
So,
That's a good place to stop.
so that's why we're trying to get down to the point of this and not drag it out. If you want to get very detailed into this subject, I would encourage you to get these books
Yeah.
and check it out for yourself. It would confirm to you. But there's a seal right there. I was just talking about that.
Yeah,
the clutch.
we're going to get to it. But
Yeah.
if we've done enough today, then we can stop there.
Yeah, I think people want to discuss and
Yeah,
and
because
talk.
it's a lot of information.
It is a lot to digest. And I know you need a break here.
And there we go. Thank you.
And I was just messing up, inserting myself there, trying to be the Johnny on the spot with the information. But interesting read, like I said. Listen, this is so important. There are going to be those that are going to be mad and say, "Oh, this is a Hebrew root stuff," and or what is the other one? Replacement theology and all that kind of stuff. And you really got to get this. This is not what this is about. True, the Hebrews are in the church, but the church is not Israel. They're in there. They're intermingled, and that's what happened to Ephraim. The dispersion is part of the intermingling, the assimilation, the big no-no to Jews. What my grandparents did from the Levine side of the family, intermarrying, and not only that, changing the last name from Levine to Lee to fit into the southern people in the southern states. It was a quick, easy move for them. It's called assimilation, and that's what had been going on. There were some tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and half of Manasseh, who stayed, that were able to maintain the bloodline. And those are very stiff-necked people. Those are people that you see on YouTube. I may even post some of their videos. Rabbi Mizrahi, Rabbi Glazerson. Many of these are from some of these tribes. They're sects within these tribes. So they got that. It's a whole hierarchy, but these are the same people, and they have been there, and they're not lost. Now, some have chosen to be Jewish people, Americanized. There's a lot of them in Hollywood. They control everything, the Rothschilds, all of this big money. But guess what? Those are not the ones that are going to be called home. You see what I'm saying? Because they're part of Babylon. They are Babylon. They gave themselves over to it. When the Israelites were led out of Egypt, there were some that actually went back. They turned around and went back because that's what they wanted. They didn't want to be free. They didn't want to come out of the bondage. They want to make more bricks. Got to pay the mortgage and pay for the Ferrari and all the things that spoil Americans. That's going to be taken away. And I'm saying all that because you can see it happening, folks. I don't have to. You can see it happening. I don't have to show you in the codes that the things of this great nation are coming to a point. Now, I'm not saying there's no hope for this nation. And a lot of people want to put their hope in a man, and they're doing it in Trump. I personally can't see that there's going to be another election. And if there is he taken out? Because there's a high probability in the text there that he's murdered. The same thing was there for Obama. Don't make no mistake. But these are probabilities. It's about people making choices and many people interacting, and all these things have to fall into place. See how codes cannot be manipulated to tell the future, folks. Only the Father knows that. But he can reveal things before they happen. That has been done. And I believe he's done that in this case in some of the things that I found, especially when I hold back and I see verification going on all around me. Months after I find it in the codes, leads me to believe in the honing and the sharpening he's been taking me through. These are some serious things that I'm seeing here. What am I talking about? Well, this FEMA code table, the FEMA camp, Jade Helm, all this stuff that you see going on, and you see it's right in front of your eyes. They're doing the same thing in Europe, guys. Back in World War II, the trains and the camps and things like that. No, I'm not trying to spread fear porn here. I'm just saying, open your eyes. Be a wise person. See what's going on. You see shelves emptying in your stores. You see trains sitting on train tracks and not moving. Goods and services to the American, the infrastructure of this country. You see what's happening on Wall Street and other markets in the world. This is biblical. Don't be surprised. You were told of these things. We should rejoice because it's verification and validation. And we're not nutcases. These things are real. I was telling you before the man was even elected. Go back and search my videos. I was telling you before he was even elected, the man was a demon. He was a spoiler. He was the AC, or had the spirit of the AC. Now that's not clear yet, if he's the actual man. But he is the forerunner. And you see what he's doing, flaunting it in your face. He is slapping you in the face with it, saying you're so stupid and you're so consumed in your television and in yourselves that you don't even know it's the fall of the republic. He'll make jokes about it in your face and you'll laugh about it. Wake up. Wake up, folks. Do I look crazy now? I've been showing you and been showing you and been showing you. I showed you the fall of America. I showed you the collapse. Now I got to show you FEMA camps. And the things that I'm seeing here is bad. I mean very, very bad. I told you on this channel maybe a few months ago that the Holy Spirit spoke to me driving down the road. And I heard very clearly say, Americans cannot fathom the horrors that will come on this nation. That destruction that comes in a day, that stunned feeling that you had when 9/11 happened and you're watching this live, and it's almost like a movie, and you're just stuck in where you're wherever you're at and just cannot believe what you're seeing. That's going to happen again. And I believe it's with an invasion and an internal captivity. By the way, there's high indication in this table that we're going to be overrun by a massive army. Massive. It says, draw their bows back round about, all around about, and let them fly. And that is missiles. You might have seen it. I posted from RT, a link from RT last night. What is going on in Russia right now? It's V-Day. Victory Day. And they are parading all of their hardware. And I sat here as I was editing the video last night. It was maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning here. So it was, I don't know, daytime in Moscow. But they had in Red Square, folks, go back and look at the video, ICBM missiles that they were proudly displaying. Multiple mobile systems. See, we built silos and put missiles in them. Now we have Triton missiles in submarines. But the Russians have these huge trucks. They're called mobile missile systems. Intercontinental ballistic missiles. And the warheads on these missiles would hold multiple nuclear warheads. So one head would have 12 warheads in it. So when it comes in through the atmosphere from outer space, that head opens up and releases 12 more warheads, smaller warheads that would disperse. So it's a compounding effect, and it's devastating. And it could be the vision that I saw when I walked out on my door from my Elijah cave and saw fire from heaven. And it looked to me, and I told Darla about this not too long ago. Darla can testify. And I showed her something off a YouTube video that looked very similar, and it was these missiles that were coming down. I think it was something Russia was doing in Syria. And I said, and this is what it looked like. It was white contrails with fire. I could see the fire and white contrails. It didn't look like meteorites coming in like random. They were all falling at the same time. And the first words out of my mouth was, "Oh my, fire from heaven." And that's what came out of my mouth. And this is in a vision I had over a year ago. I was still in Monroe at that time. And so anyway, I couldn't get the table out. Guys, we obviously were working late. Darla's yawning right next to me as I'm speaking. We put up some long hours. And I just couldn't get the video and get the table done. But I will work on it as we get off tonight and try to get it up for you for tomorrow so you can see. But be prepared. This is me laying it out to you. I'm not trying to prophesy, but I'm showing you some astounding things encoded in a small section. It's less than 10,000. This is not a very big place on this cylinder. So we're talking in a condensed area, and there's a hot spot of particular prophets that speak to this day in this skip, in this width of this cylinder. And it's horrifying. There's even one place, folks, I'll even give you a little piece of it, where it speaks of cannibalism. In context of the scripture going on here, there was cannibalism going on. Because, see, in the table, and there's famine, and these FEMA camps, and people are going to go running to them. You hear me? They're going to run to them willingly, like sheep to a slaughter. And we're going to have some hard talks. Hard talks on what to do and how fast you have to do it. When you see these certain things take place, when you see you have to react, you see, don't count on there being a rapture before these kind of things happen. Because you'll get caught up. Not literally caught up in a rapture, but caught up in a trap, in a pit. Yeah, there's judgment coming. And there's hope. Now, the very last verse I got highlighted. I'll give you this before we close it out tonight. The very last verse in there speaks to if a nation called by my name would humble themselves, well, he would forgive us. But see, I've told you that there comes a point where a runaway train is eventually a train wreck. You can't stop it. We're overrun with wickedness in this country and people who are just boldly flaunting it. But I do know, interwoven in those scriptures, for all the ones that there for judgment, there's also a promise. And I was telling Darla here tonight about it on the way to our engagement in town, that on one side was the promise of judgment, but on the other hand was the promise to those called by his name, his promises to keep them, to sustain them, to bring them out, to cover them, to hide them, to protect his. The judgment is not this thing that's coming on the earth, and it's the whole earth, not just America. Wickedness abounds through the whole thing. It's coming on us all. World war, what we have to deal with this interstellar binary system coming in, the fulfillment of Revelation. We will be dealing with it together here. And the other table I got to talk to you about is a hard revelation. I can't even think about how I'm going to present that. I consulted with an author who is controversial at the moment. He was disinvited to a prophecy conference because his material is so controversial. It turned the evangelical churches upside down when he come out with it. So I consulted with him on how to present this information. It goes against one's core beliefs, something that you were instilled, something that was instilled in you. How do you deal with that? So I'm dealing with this very, very delicately, and that is the rapture, the pre-rapture issue, the Darby issue. Is it real? Is it inserted doctrine of man? I'm going to show you what it is. But there's still hope. It doesn't mean there's not a rapture. I'm not telling you there's not a rapture. It's just a misunderstanding and things inserted in here that has deluded and misguided people to believe a lie. And you don't have to believe a lie anymore. I'm going to show you what the codes have there. Now you can receive it or you can reject it. That's up to you. But I'm going to do what the Father Yahuwah has called me to do and reveal this to you. It is, like I said, something I've stayed away from, this rapture thing, because it's controversial with you guys. You want to argue and want to fight, divide over it. It's not a fight. It's not a salvation issue, for one thing. Period. I mean, you can believe in a rapture, you don't believe in a rapture. There's going to be a catching away. But when it takes place and how it goes with feast days is another deal. So, yeah. My bride is yawning. She's very tired. So we're going to close it out. We got any questions coming through that I need to address?
I don't really see any questions coming through.
I hope you guys have been blessed with this broadcast that we put on tonight with this book. We will continue next week. We'll continue with the reading. We're just getting into this, very interesting. And imagine if we had gone through the rest of how, So we went right to the meat portion of the meal, so to speak, the manna given to us.
Because we just don't know how much time we have.
Right, we don't know how much time. We were both feeling an urgency in the air. Yesterday, having a conversation with her, there was a storm came up, and I got it on film, and I got to make a video about it, but a storm come up. As we're having a conversation about these very two tables I'm talking to you about, the storm came up, and I believed it was a manifestation of angels, good angels and bad angels, because of the conversation content. And it's an internal thing where I'm because I care about you, and I just can't throw information at you. As some people like on YouTube, there's going to be a rapture, there's going to be a rapture, there's going to be a rapture. Come on, guys, come on, like it's a baseball game, pumping you up. Come on, baby, come on, batter, get it. You know what I'm saying? I can't do that to you guys. I can encourage you. I can show you courage. I can show you things in the codes that will encourage you, that will lift you up and edify you. But I'm not going to butter and sweet talk you and tell you things that are going to make you feel good, and just because it makes the person feel good that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to share with you truth, even if it hurts, because it's what He's called me to do. These are tough ones, and that's why I asked for the prayer yesterday in Facebook for the spiritual covering, because this is, every time I do this, when I reveal something big like the CERN stuff, like the Obama the dictator table, every time I did that, when the CERN table happened, guys, my dog died the very next morning. Remember, my Chihuahua. I mean, that was a spiritual attack. She died in a matter of hours, going from a dog playing around and jumping and playing, just dead, just no life in her. And it was the thing that I loved. And the enemy knew that. And this storm comes up on us when we're having this conversation and takes out the turkeys that I have down outside this window in a kennel. Trying to nest them. It's breeding season, nesting season, and we lost some in a fire when they were burning the aqueduct back there. So this was something I had invested my little pride into, and then the enemy comes and smashes it when we're having this sowed revelation. There was a lot of revelation came to. That was just huge. But I promise you, and I give you my word, I'm going to lay it to you with every bit of sincerity and humility, and walk through it with you in my logic and how I came to conclusions that I did. I believe that I'm right about this. I believe that things like the comet sighting spring, where I called it as a deep impact when the code clearly showed, a collision well over a year before it took place. However, I called deep impact. He has taught me how to look at these things without adding myself into it. Okay? So that is why many of these take time to get out, because you have to be sure. You can't throw it at people. You can't build their hopes up, and you can't dash them to pieces, because you'll be judged for that. The repercussions of anything negative, of hurting one of the little ones, you have to pay for. The Father, measure for measure. Midah keneged midah. Beloved, we love you. Yeshua loves you. The Father loves you. And He hasn't forgot you. He has a plan. Even if you've been lied to, you know what He said? All things that were hidden will be revealed, and all things that were buried shall be raised up. So there's hope. He's not forgot you. And there's no lost tribes. He knew exactly where He put us and where He drove us. And you know who you are. That revelation is coming to you now. Your eyes are being opened. Wake up. Wipe the sleep out your eyes. Your time is coming. The curse is over. It's about time to go home. Yeshua bless you and keep you. And we'll see you in the next video. And we'll see you next week, guys. We love you. And I don't have any music keyed up. Sorry. I'm so bad at trying to be the producer. You need these controls.